So Nintendo had an investors meeting where investors asked a bunch of different questions to Nintendo, and there's a few different questions and answers that I would like to highlight here in this video. Maybe 4, 5, or 6 questions. Some interesting stuff regarding, their movies, game key cards, the Switch 2 pricing, development of Switch 2 games, for example. So some interesting tidbits here I want to highlight. If you enjoy this kind of content, leave a like, subscribe for more. Do a variety of Nintendo-based content. Let's not waste time and jump straight into this. I have the screenshots for some of the transcripts. Some of them, it's just someone quoting it in a tweet, but credible sources, in my opinion. So let's go ahead and jump straight into this. I'll throw the first one up on the screen. This was coming from Stealth40k over on Twitter. And so at the recent Q&A, Miyamoto-san spoke about the game development philosophy that he imparts to Nintendo employees. And he says, "We want to release something that we are confident will satisfy our consumers. I always tell our teams to work for the consumer, not for your boss." And I think that philosophy definitely does shine through. Now, game prices is a whole other topic, but in terms of the game, content, I think that it's usually pretty solid, and you get that sense, right? Especially compared to other companies. We talked about that in a previous video where we talked about, the whole concept that people are talking about, Nintendo being greedy and this and that. And are they really? And so we talked about, for example, Miyamoto was actually in there. We talked about his salary. How does that compare to other people's? Furukawa-san, how does his salary compare to other executives? So it's an interesting video. If you want to check that out, link down in the description below. But next up, again, it's not in any specific order. This is regarding the film and projects, and this one's coming from Nintendo President Furukawa. And so the question was, I'll throw it on the screen, can you elaborate on the future of your visual content business? Is there a possibility of producing new visual content based on Nintendo IP other than Mario and the Legend of Zelda? And this is what Shuntaro Furukawa responded. "We released the Super Mario Bros. Movie in theaters April 2023 and are pleased to say that it has been received positively by many people around the world. Looking ahead, we plan to release a new animated film based on the Super Mario Bros. In April 2026 and a live action movie of The Legend of Zelda in May 2027. Under our strategy of expanding the number of people who have access to Nintendo IP to continuously invigorate our core integrated hardware software business, we have been working on initiatives beyond our dedicated video game platforms for several years. Visual content is one such area, and rather than simply licensing our IP to film production companies, we are taking a proactive approach where Nintendo itself is deeply involved in production and makes investments as needed," which, by the way, Miyamoto-san has been one of the main kind of guys that's been deeply involved with this. This approach allows us to maintain a strong commitment to the quality of the final product. Although we cannot discuss our plans beyond the Legend of Zelda movie at this time, we are working on various other projects. So confirmed, there are more Nintendo projects of some sort, movies, TV, whatever, that is being worked on beyond 2027. So really exciting stuff. Cannot wait to see what we get. Let me know what you guys would like to see in terms of, video game IPs and something like a TV or movie. I think Metroid would be absolutely phenomenal. Pikmin would be a nice, series. We had those Pikmin shorts. That'd be cool. But anyways, let's keep the ball rolling, because we have a little bit more. So again, in terms of Nintendo Switch 2 demand, and, supply and demand, if you will, we have a little bit of a tidbit on that as well. Again, coming from Nintendo President Furukawa, he says following: "Currently for Nintendo Switch 2, demand is exceeding supply in many countries, and we sincerely apologize for any inconvenience this may be causing our consumers. I understand that some of our shareholders and their families and friends might still be unable to purchase Nintendo Switch 2. Regarding the sales situation in Japan, in early April, we began accepting applications for purchase by randomly selected drawings from people who met certain criteria on My Nintendo Store, which is our official online store. The number of applications greatly surpassed our expectations. Consequently, on April 23rd, I posted a message on X under my name stating that we had received over 2.2 million applications and that a significant number of applicants would not be selected, and I apologized for being unable to meet everyone's expectations. Since then, we've conducted a total of 4 drawings on my Nintendo store, but some applicants have not yet been selected. For these consumers, we announced the day before yesterday that a 5th drawing will be held in early July. We understand that many retailers also initially sold the console via drawing, but since last weekend, the number of stores offering the system for direct purchase at their storefronts has gradually increased. We will continue to strengthen our production and supply systems to deliver as many Nintendo Switch 2 systems as possible to our consumers. So they're seeing like these consoles are flying, man. Like people are just buying them instantly. There's a lot of demand and there's a lot of supply, which says that there is even bigger demand than we may have realized. So that's that. Let's move on to game keycards. Throw that one up on screen. The question: Nintendo Switch 2 has adopted a game keycard specification called the game keycard. There are opinions online that this is a hybrid between physical and digital software, and that physical software containing no full game data is not very appealing. I am concerned that if titles from software publishers on game keycards do not sell well as a result of adopting this format, these publishers might move away from the Nintendo Switch 2. What are your thoughts on this? Furukawa-san said, the game keycard used for Nintendo Switch 2 does not contain full game data for the game itself. Instead, it stores a key to activate the software. An internet connection is required for downloading the data for the game the first time you play it. Subsequent gameplay does not require an internet connection, but the game keycard must be inserted into the system. This is one of the new software distribution methods we have introduced to accommodate the larger game data sizes on Nintendo Switch 2. Compared to Nintendo Switch, software can be released in various formats, and we will continue to work closely with software publishers on many fronts to ensure that they can actively support our platform. So it's a little bit of a non-specific regarding the game key cards. It's more of like we're going to continue to working, with third-party developers to make sure, we can continue having that kind of support on our platform. So that's kind of the reassurance. I guess that was the main focus of the question is like, what if publishers move away from Switch 2? Not as much focus on the actual game key cards itself, because again, there's a lot regarding that. I'm not going to go into all that. I still would say way better than just having a downloadable code in a box or the cloud-based kind of games, which a lot of devs are doing on the Switch 1, which is just not ideal. So game keycards still vastly preferred to those formats, but not preferred to just full physical game on the card, which is weird because, again, games like Bravely Default should be on there, but people have argued, well, maybe it's because they're only offering, the larger kind of 60-something gig, 62 gig, I think, or 64 gig cards, which cost more than the 32 gig cards for this. If developers have a game that is under 32 gigs, then why not supply them with those kind of cards that are cheaper? We don't know for sure, but that's just kind of been the speculation. And so a little disappointed that he didn't go too much into that side of things, but again, it is what it is. So that's game key cards. And then in terms of the rising development costs and different things like that, we have something about that. So let's throw it up on the screen. Someone said, I'm concerned that the improved performance of Nintendo Switch 2 will lead to higher game development costs, which in turn could result to higher software prices and ultimately a decrease in gaming population. What measures are you considering to address this? Furukawa-san said, recent game software development has become larger in scale and longer in duration, resulting in higher development costs. And of course, you can see this across the board, outside of Nintendo. It's crazy. The game business has always been a high-risk business, and we recognize that rising development costs are increasing that risk. Our development teams are devising various ways to maintain our traditional approach to creating games. Amidst the increasing scale and length of development, we believe it is important to make the necessary investments for more efficient development. We also believe it is possible to develop game software with shorter development periods that still offer consumers a sense of novelty. We see this as one potential solution to the concern about rising development costs and software prices, and we will explore it from various angles within the company, end quote. So again, the idea here is they're exploring different ways to develop, maybe shorter development times, which might be also kind of cheaper, prices for games, hopefully. How is that going to look? Your guess is as good as mine. Obviously, it's Nintendo. I don't think Nintendo's going to take the route of cheapening out. They've never, in my opinion, never really been the one to do that. I mean, they're the ones that delayed Breath of the Wild for forever until it finally came out, until they were satisfied. Metroid Prime 4 again as well. They completely scrapped that after years of development. They're like, we're not happy with it. We're scrapping it. We're restarting it. So I don't see Nintendo taking a cheap route. Like some other companies, Call of Duty every single year. It's just like, it just feels like this mechanical machine is pumping out stuff that is just subpar at this point, which is unfortunate. And that's kind of what happens when developers have too much of that focus of like, we got to cut development costs and just increase profits. So I don't think Nintendo's going to go down that route. And then we have one last thing, and this one is worth noting because some places like Eurogamer, they misquoted Furukawa-san and made it sound like it was this whole other thing, to the point where there's actually community notes on Eurogamer's post. And this is regarding, the Switch 2 and the higher price point, and, all of that, the entry of being able to kind of interact with Nintendo IPs and whatnot. So this is what Furukawa-san actually said. Throw it on the screen. It is true that Nintendo Switch 2 is a higher price point than our past gaming systems. We're creating various opportunities outside of our gaming systems for young children to engage with Nintendo characters and game worlds, with one of the ultimate goals being that they will eventually play on our gaming systems. We are closely monitoring to what degree the price of the system might become a barrier, end quote. So, for example, some of the other ways they're introducing that, obviously the movies, right? They have mobile games, and that's another kind of smaller price point for an introduction to Nintendo IPs. So yeah, it's pretty solid. What's being said here, it makes a lot of sense. It's not saying like, oh, if you can't afford a Switch 2, then there's this option. It's saying that we have all these different options to engage with Nintendo IPs, and the Switch 2 is at a higher price point, but like analysts said before, it's costing Nintendo over like $400 to make the Switch 2. So $450, you'd just be like, oh yeah, they're making a little bit of profit, marginal profits. But then after the tariffs on Vietnam, they're pretty much coming in at a loss. So that's how that works. So anyways, that's some of the highlights for you guys. Let me know what you think about it all in the comments below. Thought some of this was interesting. Wish some of it was, had a little bit more elaboration, but better than nothing, I would say. So thanks for watching. Till the next one, game on. See you guys later.